Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. Before we bring on tonight's guest, if you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com and submit a report. All right, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest wishes to remain anonymous. With that in mind, I've digitally altered his voice, and I'm going to refer to him as Ben. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vic. Thanks for having me.
Ben, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I'm 27, live in Greater London, in an area called Raynham. It's near the border of Essex, so we're near to Essex, but we're in Havering County, which is a borough in London, Greater London. It's mainly marshlands, well, it's not mainly marshlands. There's a large marshland though, and a country park, and it's just like a small town really. Where I work in South London, do some security work up in London. We like doing that. I work for a company mainly looking after certain properties in London. That's pretty much it, mate.
As the listeners will hear, your encounter happened right behind where you live, which you said is a marshy area. Before we spoke for the first time, did you know that a lot of Dogman encounters happen in and around swamps and marshy areas?
No, I didn't actually know that. You just told me. I didn't realise, because I didn't make the connection until, I thought, well, there's that marshland there, so, maybe that's part of the reason why. But yeah, now I say.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but for whatever reason, dogmen do seem to like living in and around swamps. You told me in the pre that you've experienced several paranormal events over the course of your life. Besides your Dogman encounter, what kinds of other paranormal experiences have you had?
Well, I was working on one of the job sites in South London. It's a high-rise. It's like a corporate high-rise. There's a company that operates there. And they've got a couple of people that they have looking at the security cameras and going around the buildings, going floor to floor, checking to see if everything's locked up, no one's there, no one's squatting, there are no homeless people vandalising or doing drugs in the building. So I was walking around, I got to about the 5th floor, and I heard this door close. So I go looking around the floor, look at all the doors, none of them are open, so for a door to slam shut that, because it's a long corridor, I would have seen someone running off or someone somewhere, but it's a long corridor that have intersecting corridors, so you go forward and then there's 2 corridors off to the side, and then it carries on down to another area where you can take a lift and go up. So, I don't know, maybe there was someone there, but I didn't see them. That was my first paranormal experience. Now, the second paranormal experience I had in the house that I'm living at now, and I've seen this a couple of times, 3 or 4 times. It's a black dog head with white eyes, dead white eyes, so it looks, in the movies, how they have the classic white eyes, and it just looks really creepy. It had those white eyes and weird fangs pointing in different directions, and these weird cropped ears, they sort of went out, and then when they flipped back down again, they went up and then down. It's weird. was really weird. And in places, it had like very kind of like a furry look to it, but it also had these like really weird black spots on it. It looked really weird. Saw that 2 or 3 times. I got a picture of it as well, actually, but I deleted it because it was like really creepy. Creeped me out too much. I couldn't look at it anymore, so I deleted it. And then the other paranormal experience I've had in this house has been, I saw a person standing by the sink. It was really weird because this was in midday. Like the other experiences I had, they were at night. But this was in midday. I saw a person standing by the sink, a woman, and she was just standing there. But she was lit up kind of like more than the area around her. And then she just disappeared. I was staring at her, and she literally was there 1 second, gone the next. That's all the paranormal experiences I've had.
I don't know, that's enough to make you want to hide under the covers and not come out.
I saw that dog head in the room that I was sleeping, actually. It was sort of like over by the corner, in the corner of the room, because it's only a small room. I'd estimate, it's not that big. So it was sort of like in the corner of the room, but it wasn't looking at me. See, it was looking at the wall, which was really weird, because there's nothing there. But yeah, it was all the paranormal experiences I've had.
Yeah, like I said, that's more than enough. From what I understand, your mother had an experience that might have been Dogman related. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, she's a light sleeper, so she wakes up at like the drop of a hat. If she hears something, even like an owl chirping can sometimes wake her up. So she was lying in bed about 3 a.m. She got a knock at the door, and it creeped her out like really badly. Like she was kind of terrified by that. But this kept happening within like a 3-week period. But it wasn't like every day, one after the other. It was like there'd be days when she'd get woken up at 3 a.m. and days where she wouldn't. So it's like spaced out, but within 3 weeks, 3 weeks of that. And then it was like at 2 and then 1 a.m. She just got this really weird kind of vibe from it, like it terrified her. So she gets up on one of the occasions. I can't remember when she said she got up, but she got up on one of these occasions and got down to the stairs. She was 2 stairs from the landing, which leads to the door. And then there's the kitchen right in front of her, and it's got a window there. And then the living room. So she gets to the landing, and she says, "No, I can't do this. I can't go down there." And she just heads back upstairs. A little while later, though, she got the courage to go down the stairs, but she didn't have this creepy feeling at that point. So she goes down the stairs and looks out the window. She doesn't see anything. Now, she said to me, she said, "I don't think I would have seen anything if I'd opened that door." But then something in the back of my mind always goes, well, yeah, but you've had these paranormal experiences before, and you haven't had that kind of weird sensation with it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something to that. Maybe it is Dogman, maybe it's not. I don't know. That's the experience she had.
Well, she never saw a Dogman any of the times when that happened, so we're never going to know what it was that made her feel that way or what knocked on the door. Dogmen do things like that, though, so maybe that's what it was. I guess we're never going to know.
Knocking on people's doors, like... Because she said it wasn't like someone tapping on the door or knocking on the door with like a finger or anything. It used the door knocker, because we have like one of those ring door knockers that you just pull up and tap on the door. And it was like someone did that like really quietly though. It still woke her up, and it was loud enough to wake her up, so I don't know, maybe it wasn't that quiet, but it was like someone knocking on the door with a door knocker.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It just might have been one, but since she didn't see one, like I said, I guess we'll never know. All right, please tell us about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Right, so the field where I live near, it's a country park. The area around me is like, there's a country park, so there's like these fields, right? And there's a couple of lakes in the fields, one further off towards like this wooded area, and one close to like the meadows. Beyond that would be the marshes. So it's kind of close to marshland, so. But at the same time, the wooded area is close to the marshland as well, because the wooded area backs onto a fishery, and the fishery is like right near the marshland as well. So it's sort of close to like this marshy area. I forgot to tell you about like the fishery. See, we have like a fishery there, so there are people that go and fish for like carp and cod in like these fairly large lakes, and it's over by the park. It's past this wooded area. You have to go into like past the large pond, or well, I say large, medium-sized pond, to get to this wooded area, and then you follow the path and go over this bridge, and then you're into the path that leads to the fisheries. You just like go over like this little, I say bridge, it's like more like a little walkway between like one side of this ditch and another, with a stream running underneath. It's like 2-3 inches. It's not really big. So you go over that, and then you go past that, and there's like a fishery, right? I just wanted to give you a layout of the area. Now, I usually, after doing stuff like at work, I like to unwind, so I go for walks around the park. And sometimes it can be late. Sometimes I go for like walks about 11ish around the park, because there's nothing there, is there? Well, it's supposed to be nothing there. Anyway, I was walking around the park about late evening, so maybe 6 or 7. It was starting to get dark. This was last year, so yeah, about 6 or 7. And right, okay. So I was walking around the path, and I get to the part where you go down to get to like this medium-sized lake, and there's a pen gate, you know, like a farm gate that sort of like stops people driving cars down there. But it also is there to stop horses like galloping down there as well. So I walk down that path, and I see this like creature's head sticking over like this gate, and this gate's like up to my chest. I'm 5'10", 5'11", so that's gotta be like 5'9", the gate. Little 5'8". So what I see is this this head of a wolf-like creature sticking over the fence. Hold on, I missed a bit out. Before I actually got to the gate, see, while I'm walking around, like, usually I don't pay attention to anything that's going on around me, so I didn't notice that the birds and all the creatures had stopped cheeping and chirping and all that noise had stopped. So I suddenly noticed that, and then I suddenly went, oh, that's a bit weird. And then I saw that, and then I swear down, it stood up, and it put hands on top of that gate. And then it sort of stood there and stared at me. And I'm staring at it, and I'm thinking, whoa, what's that? We haven't got bears here. That looks a bit like a wolf, because I've seen wolves. I mean, there's a zoo in London. I've been to that zoo. I've seen wolves. It's got a wolf-like head. It was sort of a similar colour to, like, the wolves, timber wolves. It had that grey kind of colour to it. So I'm staring at it, and I'm thinking, oh dear, this isn't going to end well for me. But at the same time, I'm freaking out internally. My mind's just going everywhere in it. It's not thinking at all. It's like time froze. It's like everything stopped. And it must have been what, like 3-4 seconds? This seemed like an eternity. It turned, took a couple of steps towards this tree line, because there's a ditch by the side of, like, this path. And it just stepped over that ditch. It's a wide ditch. Steps over the ditch. Can't say how wide, but I couldn't step over that ditch. So it steps over, like, the ditch, but it turns and looks at me one last time. And then there's this fox call that it hears, and then it just sort of runs off, because it turned towards the fox call and then bolts after it. And then I'm thinking, right, that's it, I'm running out of here. And I just ran back home. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to tell anyone about that. Let's just forget that. Because the people that I live with, they're not really big believers in paranormal, or Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, or Dogman, or anything like that. Especially creatures like that. So I couldn't really say to anyone, hey, I just saw this insanely big creature. And yeah, needless to say, I didn't get any sleep that night. And it's been on my mind ever since, because I'm always thinking, what was that? Why did it act that way? How is it there? Why is it there? What's it doing? Why is it doing this, acting this way towards people? And are there more of them? Those were the thoughts going through my mind. And that's what I sat up thinking about all night. That's what I was doing that night. What's really creepy is, sometimes, I'm not making this up, but I swear sometimes, I get that kind of feeling like I'm being watched when I'm in my back garden. And I told you, Vic, my back garden backs onto that park, that country park. There's a bit of a wooded area, and then meadows, like fields. But I sometimes get that weird feeling out there of being watched by something. I don't know if it's that, or if it's just I'm being a bit paranoid, but there are a couple of times that's happened, so yeah, that's my experience.
Well, after having an experience like that, it's really hard to blame you for being almost paranoid. After you see a dog man, especially one that was as close as that one was to you, I mean, who could blame you?
Yeah, it was about 40 feet, I think. I said maybe closer, because I was walking up to that gate, but when I realised that it wasn't what I thought it was, because I thought it was a horse, I sort of stopped then, because I was like, wait, if this isn't a horse, what am I looking at? I don't want to get close to something that I don't know what it is. So it could have been closer, I don't know. It couldn't have been closer than 30 feet though, because I was a fair distance from it, but I was close enough to notice that's no horse, that's definitely a dog. And the thing is, I know it walked on two legs because it stood up and it walked to the gate to put the hands on. It only walked a couple of steps. The eyes were the weird part of it, because they looked human-like. You know, like if you're looking at a human's eyes, they're a bit different than like animals' eyes, but it looked human-like in that way. Its eyes were strange. They weren't animal eyes, and that was terrifying. The hands were weird because the fingers were longer than a human's hands, like way longer. It almost made me wonder, like, how it used them, because for a hand to work, they've got to be proportionate, and it looked like these fingers were just really long. They had, like, long claws on the end of them, though. I'd say, like, double the size of my fingers. Maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, about double the size. They were a darker colour than the coat, because the coat was, like, a kind of greyish colour, like a tin wolf or something like that. But the hands were a bit darker. They weren't black, but they were darker. Almost like a darker kind of grey. That doesn't really make much sense. But the nails were white and long and sharp. And straight. They were straight nails. They were to a point. They looked really deadly. Like, if that creature tried to attack you, you'd be their lunch. So, that's the two things that I got from it. It was walking, I didn't want it to get close to me, and those eyes unnerved me, because they weren't like animal eyes.
When it stepped over the ditch and left, how much time did you spend frozen in place trying to process what you had just experienced?
Oh, about 5-6 seconds. Then I was like, nah, screw this, and I just bolted.
I don't blame you. You thought you were hallucinating at first about having that encounter, but later on you changed your mind. How long did it take you to change your mind, and why did you change it?
Well, I've been listening to your show before, Vic, so I thought that Dogmen didn't exist, and it was great entertainment. I just thought that they didn't exist. I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe people were just seeing things Or maybe misidentifying wolves that walked on their hind legs. The episodes about UK dogmen always interested me though, because I was like, what are they seeing? They can't all be seeing deer. So, I don't know what I thought. And then when I saw it, I was like, I've got to be hallucinating, because you don't want to accept seeing something that's unnatural. But at the same time, I know I saw it. I saw it plain as day. It was a distance from me, but I saw that thing. I saw it stand up and I saw it do those things, man. It was crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I don't want to see that do that thing again.
Well, I can understand why you'd feel that way, and I hope you never do. I'm sure you realize that there are droves of people in the UK who are into cryptids, but they're convinced dogmen can't be living there. What would you say to them?
Well, just because you don't think something can exist, it doesn't mean that it doesn't. Just because you think you know your area, maybe you've been hunting there or going out walking or hiking, because I know people don't hunt in the UK as much anymore. I don't think it's legal now. Probably not. But just because you've been hiking in that area and you know it like the back of your hand, that doesn't mean to say that you know every creature there, because if that thing wanted to hide, I'm sure it could, because I've been living here for 5, 6 years. I thought I knew every creature in that country park. That day showed me that creatures like that can live anywhere. And because of that, just try to keep an open mind. Try and view your surroundings. And please try to maintain a sense of observance, because you might not believe in it. And you might think it's just a joke or a laugh or something silly. But if it sees you and you don't think that it's real, and it knows that you've got your back turned to it, if it wanted to, it could kill you. Just like a bear. Or a big cat. But just because you assume that you know every creature around your area, that doesn't mean it's true. You need to maintain vigilance. That's what I recommend to anyone who thinks that these creatures don't exist. Just maintain vigilance. If not for dogmen, just maintain vigilance for holes or people, or just be aware of your surroundings. Don't be on your phone texting your mate 24/7. Keep an open mind and observe your surroundings, especially when in the wilderness, because it's dangerous. And those creatures most certainly do exist, because I saw one and I'm not insane. That's pretty much it.
Do you think it's more difficult to deal with a dogman encounter if you have one in the UK than it is if you have one in the United States? If so, why?
Most certainly in the UK it's much more difficult, because in America you've got things you can explain it upon. Like, oh, you just saw an upright walking wolf, or oh, you just saw a bear. If someone says, I just saw an upright walking creature that had a wolf's head that was about 250 pounds, people are going to look at you and say, this guy's insane. We need to section him. Because there's nothing that looks remotely like that. With America, you can explain it on a bear, because bears are big creatures. We haven't got any big creatures. The biggest creature we've got, I think we've got deer here. Like a mouse, deer, not steer, what do you call them now? But bucks. They aren't that big. They can't be very big. You know what I mean? Compared to this thing's size, it's not going to be standing, 6.5, 7 feet tall? And that's pretty much what I think about it, mate. Because the other reason why in America it's a lot easier to sort of like deal with a sighting over there than in the UK is you've had all those sightings of Bigfoot and other cryptids, and like people, alright, some might, give you a hard time about seeing a Bigfoot or a UFO or something like that, but people generally in America, they're like, okay, maybe you saw something in the woods. With Dogman, it's like, okay, maybe you saw a bear walking for about a couple of steps. But here there's nothing, like, even if you saw a Bigfoot, I bet it'd be worse because there's nothing anywhere near that size over here. A Dogman, nothing that size over here. So, because there's nothing that people can compare it to, they don't believe or want to believe that it exists, so you must be wrong in their eyes. That's why it's worse to see something like that in the UK as opposed to America. So that's what I think about that.
You just mentioned the large animals that live over here that can't be found over there. Do you have any theories about how something as large as a dogman could survive in the UK?
Well, as I say, we've got like fisheries, so maybe they're, scavenging for fish. There is a large population of foxes in the area, and from time to time people's cats and dogs do go missing in the area. I don't know if it's Dogman related, but in areas where they are reported that does happen, doesn't it? So, yeah, I don't know, maybe they just run away, but they're never found. Like, when a cat or dog goes missing here, they aren't found. It's not like, oh, it was in the back of the shed. No, it's not. They're nowhere. No one finds them.
Yeah, I hope that's not what's at the heart of that, pets going missing, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. When you heard what you thought was that fox call, how sure are you that it was or wasn't another dogman?
To be honest, I didn't even think about the possibility, but now that you mention it, I was listening to one of your shows, I think, where they were saying that there was this creature that was mimicking like an owl for something, like an owl's hoot around them, and it was coming from 3 different directions. They were camping. I don't know what episode that was, but it does make you wonder, can these mimic sounds? Because if it can, that was possibly another dogman, and I don't like that thought. Because if there's more than one in the area, how many more are there?
Yeah, that is pretty disconcerting. After having your experience, have you spent much time contemplating what other strange creatures might be out there?
Yes, I have. I've been thinking about it. And it's a weird area because there's marshland next to woods, next to a field. It's weird. Usually you have like marshland or woods or a field, and they don't just blend into each other. So it's a weird mix of wildlife you get out there. Maybe something strange is out there too. I haven't encountered anything else though. And I haven't heard anything weird. That's the other thing about the encounter that I forgot to mention. It did not make a sound, that dogman. Just stood and stared at me. Even when it went to walk off and turn back, did not make a sound. That was strange.
Well, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if there are other things out there that I guess we in one way would like to know about, and in other ways we probably wouldn't want to know about.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. Because I kind of want to know, like, just to make sure that I know how dangerous the area is, but as you say, at the same time, you kind of don't want to know, because you want to know, if you know too much, then sometimes knowledge is not what you want. So, yeah. I'm with you there, mate.
You know what they say, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Would you say the close proximity of where you had your encounter to your home made it easier or harder to deal with?
Harder, much harder. Not because it's close to my home, but thinking about it, it's close to London. I'm not joking, it's an hour and a half by train, by bus to get to Havering Park, which is in London. That's actually in London proper, and it's about an hour by a tube to get to London, like central London. So, for it to be that close to London is shocking and disturbing, because if it can be that close to a major city, that thing has no fear whatsoever. It's got no fear at all. It's just so bold. It's very strange indeed.
Yeah, in the dictionary, next to the word bold, there should be a picture of Dogman.
Yeah, as I say, an hour and a half from Havering Park. That's London proper. That is like in London. It's not Greater London. That's in London. And then, as I say, hour and a half by bus to get to Havering Park from here, and an hour by the tube, and you're in London. If it's that close, how close are they? I mean, obviously they can't be like running around the streets, but like, there are, fairly large-sized parks that are near London, like around Greater London. So maybe they're there, but they're keeping their distance because there's not much in the way of parks in London. There are a couple that are fairly big, but they've not got any trees, or it's not like a wooded area. You're not going into massive woods.
Well, yeah, the thought doesn't exactly give you the warm and fuzzies, but yeah, Dogman, they're in all kinds of places that you'd never expect to find them. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Ben, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, dude. Just stay safe out there. Just try and make sure that what you're doing is safe, and that you're safe. These Dogmen, they're nothing to joke about with. If they want to kill you, they can. So just make sure you, as a person, are safe and protected. Because at the end of the day, if they want to try and beat you up, they will. But they tend to, from what I understand, attack people by surprise. If they're showing their face to you, they don't think you're a threat. You're not a threat to them. So just keep your wits about you. Scan the area. Make sure you know what's around you. And stay safe.
Well, that's all very well said. Ben, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that experience with us. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Vic. It's been a real pleasure, actually. It's really helped me out to deal with, some of the stuff going on in my head. I wasn't quite thinking right after the encounter, and I did a lot of crazy stuff. But, yeah, it's really helped me out to speak about it and to get it out there, and to talk to you, Vic. It's really good to have someone that you can talk to and say your encounter without any kind of ridicule or backlash from anybody. It's good to know that there's someone there, you know what I mean?
I do, and I can't tell you how good it makes me feel to hear that our conversations have actually helped you that way. That's great to hear. Well, thanks again so much, Ben. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.